What's going on, guys? You guys ready for another New York Power Hour? It's been really just me and Peter the last couple of weeks, but we are graced by the presence of Ram. The Prince Silver himself is with us tonight, and as promised, me and Peter are back again this week. I'm excited to talk about. I don't even know if we're going to talk about New York sports tonight. It's been so relatively quiet. I mean, the 1 week there was so much going on, right? You had the Bellinger signing, you had all of the craziness that was going on with the Mets, you had the John Harbaugh signing, and now it just seems like it's crickets right now, right? But I'm sure we'll put together an hour of some sports talk, do a little bit of BSing, and do what we do best, right? So Ram, how we doing tonight? I know we haven't seen. I've seen you. I've seen you recently, but our
Yes,
many adoring
we
fans,
have
your
seen
adoring
each
fans
other.
haven't seen you in a while. How are you doing, sir?
We have all seen each other recently, which is a nice thought. But it's actually good to be back here. I normally look forward to this stuff. I just wish it was on the eventful week because then I'd have more to bullshit about. If anything, I guess we might be able to squeeze some lemonade out of the lemon that is the New York Jets because they have no idea what they're doing. And I know Peter will love to talk about the fact that they have such a brilliant, intelligent man behind their coaching search that they've all the last 24 hours have given us a reason to laugh because they're the Jets.
Ram,
And
I would love to talk about the Jets, but I'd like to talk just a slight pivot on instead of the Jets' coaching search or lack of thereof of just hiring terrible things. Listen, this was a really bad season. I knew it was going to be bad. You guys tried to lie and convince me that Justin Fields was going to be good, but I knew you guys were just liars.
Exciting
I didn't believe you.
exciting was the exact word. No one ever said good.
It wasn't exciting either. But
it was pretty exciting for me. I mean,
it was exciting. Season. It was exciting for a bystander to watch someone put up some of the worst numbers.
It was exciting to watch any quarterback play against the Jets because, as previously mentioned on the show, good evening, Ed. It's pretty impressive to bring over a defensive coach as your head coach and find a way to not get a single interception.
Cool. So anyway, cool. It was a tough season. Our leading receiver and best player on the team, Garrett Wilson, got hurt after week 6 and still finished our leading receiver. But I did not leave this season empty-handed. If you remember a couple months ago, I posted a graphic about how the Jets had less AFC East titles than a team that is no longer in the AFC East.
That is correct.
That being the Colts. However, I don't have a graphic for this. However, the Buffalo Bills are 5th place in the AFC East for Super Bowl wins because when the Colts won Super Bowl 4, you guessed it, they were in the AFC East. So suck at Buffalo, suck at Josh Allen. But that is not the only good news that I got. I got one more piece of good news. Bill Belichick will not be a first ballot Hall of Famer. Just absolute, I think that's just probably the greatest news I've heard in a very long time. Look, everyone's excited about it. Everyone loves it. I do think that the Jets might have had a hand in him not being a first ballot Hall of Famer. More so than the cheating, more so than all the scandals. I think it's this really that kind of sealed the deal. They might have got Drake May, but Bill Belichick's not a first ballot Hall of Famer. So I think that's beautiful.
Yeah, I think it's hilarious that everyone's talking about this, by the way.
Yeah, I don't think everyone shares the same opinion as you do, Peter.
That's okay. I could be wrong.
I know you're a bitter, beaten down Jets fan who has every reason to hate Bill Belichick. I won't take that away from you, but I think the vast majority.
Forget about the napkin.
I think the vast majority of people are still a little stunned by Bill Belichick not making the Hall of Fame as a first ballot Hall of Famer. Put everything aside, he's still six Super Bowl winner. He's, I think, 3rd all time in wins as an NFL head coach. There's no denying the pedigree that Bill Belichick had, the sustainable success he had in New England for all of those years. To me, it comes as a surprise that he's not a first ballot Hall of Famer. Ram, what are your thoughts?
I think I read that Dave Portnoy thinks that he should be a first ballot Hall of Famer, and that was the best argument for me to understanding that Bill Belichick should not be a first ballot Hall of Famer. Because Dave Portnoy never gets anything right. He's actually one of the stupidest people that's ever existed on planet Earth. And so when he came forward and he said, hey, Bill Belichick should be a first ballot Hall of Famer, I immediately realized in that moment, Peter was right. That this is actually just really, really funny. I'm surprised to give an actual thought here because I thought, with all the cheating, the fact that he's a general asshole, and the fact that he obviously benefited from Tom Brady more than Tom Brady benefited from him, that people were still going to give him first ballot Hall of Fame rights. And I mean, statistically, I get it, right? If I put the fun aside for a bit, I don't think it would have shocked me if he got in. It actually shocks me more that he's not a first ballot Hall of Famer. I didn't realize there were that many people who understood sports or were good-hearted in the world. So I'm really happy that like 10 to 12 of them were on that Hall of Fame voting panel. So I'm proud of those people for sticking up for what's right, if we're being honest about it. I'm stunned, though, because I think Eli didn't make it in either. I guess that's a New York sports topic. So, but I also am one of those people that's like kind of halfway on the Eli argument, if I'm being sincere. I think it's kind of. I don't know how you feel about that.
I'm more surprised about Bill Belichick not getting in on first ballot than Eli Manning not getting on first ballot. I truly and wholeheartedly believe that Eli Manning should be in the Hall of Fame. I think his 2 Super Bowl wins alone should get him in, and the amount of the stability he brought to the Giants and the number of games he was able to play for the New York Giants, I think gets him in. And again, I can't argue about the cheating with Bill Belichick, and if that's the reason why, that's fine. It's absolutely fine. But I mean, to hold him off a year just to put him in next year, it seems a little petty. You're arguing about him. You're arguing about him being an asshole, sure, but I don't really know if the personality should hinder him from getting in. I've always said. There's certain pedigree of coach where you can get away with that. And I think Belichick is definitely at that level. I think Nick Saban's at that level, right? Like, people talk about how Nick Saban doesn't do interviews at halftime and, they give him crap for it. I'm sorry. He is the best college football coach that has walked on a football field. He's earned that right to be an asshole, and it's the same thing with Belichick. You want to talk about the off the field stuff, totally fine. Dating a 20-year-old, it is what it is, right? But when you look at the numbers objectively, he is a Hall of Fame coach, and he should be a first ballot Hall of Fame coach.
It's funny you said when you look at the numbers objectively, because when I look at Bill Belichick's coaching record without Tom Brady, it's 83 and 104.
Yeah,
a .444 winning percentage. That's not very good.
Yeah, I don't know, Peter.
I think
your argument kind of falls on itself here, and I'm gonna twist it back at you because I'm sure there have been a number of times where you've said Tom Brady isn't good, and it's his defenses that have won him championships. It's Bill Belichick that put those defenses together, right? Like, we can sit here and say, Tom Brady. Tom Brady also had a really good defense in Tampa when he won. Right. Objectively, a very good defense when he was in Tampa Bay. It was a full reset for New England when Tom Brady left. And I think it was definitely a changing of the guard. You saw that you saw that in the following years. Moving on from Belichick, moving to Mayo, and now on to Mike Vrabel.
Yes, but Luke, both things can be true.
You're absolutely right. And I don't know. I take your argument with a grain of salt because I know you have been beaten up as a Jets fan by both Tom Brady and Bill Belichick. They have single-handedly pulled down your pants and slapped your bare ass a number of times.
Listen, you can say Tom Brady does not have a winning record against the Jets in the playoffs. And the last time the Jets and the Patriots played the playoffs, the Jets beat that ass. So
it is hilarious that he's actually not lying about those 2 points.
No, he's not.
Those are 2 things he can actually say.
He's not, but I can understand sitting at home in February year after year for 6 years and watching Tom Brady hold that Lombardi trophy can be frustrating and can take a toll on a fan. Like I understand that.
Here's what I think is funny about.
Well,
this,
if the Jets,
no, go ahead, Peter. I'll.
Sorry, no, I think my stream was cutting out in the middle of it. I was just saying, it's a lot easier to win when you cheat, and clearly Bill Belichick is an elite cheater. And if the Jets would have maybe tried more of that, maybe they'd be a little bit more successful. But obviously, you can't deny this man is an elite cheater.
All right, let me ask you this. Peter.
Okay.
Who? Let's take it a step higher. Who is a worse owner, Robert Kraft or Woody Johnson?
What's the definition of worse we're using?
No.
See, that's tough. That's that's really tough to answer because on the field, it's obviously Woody Johnson. Off the field, I want to say Robert Kraft, but only one of those two men did show up in the Epstein files, and it wasn't Robert Kraft; it was Woody Johnson. Right. So it's kind of a tie there. So right. I mean, based off the
one of them was also involved in an FBI sting where he was in a was it a sex trafficking ring, correct?
Yes, it was a sex trafficking ring. So maybe it's a different.
Maybe those cancel each other out. Maybe those.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to say. I feel like I think they both suck as people. And...
Yes, but also Woody Johnson at one point said that he is a bad owner. He doesn't he's done a bad job. But then got upset and tried to have the NFL ban the player ratings at the end of the season. So clearly he cannot take criticism unless he's giving it to himself.
I think they both suck as people. As owners, I don't really care. But I think they both suck as people, which is hilarious. They do. No, I think that's
the best response.
They both suck as people.
You could give.
Like the deeper you go into this, if you look into either of the two of them, they're both objectively shitty human beings, and that has nothing to do with their impact on football. They're just legitimately things that I cannot go into to the extent of that I'd like to on this show.
I think the differentiating factor is Robert Kraft has found success in his franchise, whereas Woody Johnson has not.
Agreed.
Yeah, but I objectively agree. They are not good people. They're not they're not.
I mean, do we clap for him? Like we clap for the sex criminals when they find success? Like, you know what, Robert Kraft, we can distinguish him because he has some Super Bowls, even though he's a horrible person.
Right.
Like, is this like the Ben Roethlisberger show now? When we're like, hey, Ben Roethlisberger raped somebody, but he won a Super Bowl, so he's cool, right? Like, we like Ben Roethlisberger again because he raped somebody, Like, we're totally cool with Kobe Bryant because he raped somebody, but he's dead, so we can't say anything bad about Kobe Bryant. Like, I don't know if we're going down the, and Robert Kraft, I think it just ends at the fact that they're both shitty people.
No, they're both shitty people. They're both shitty people.
Belichick and Brady. Right. If I'm talking about Belichick and Brady,
one has a bunch of Super Bowls and one does not have a bunch of Super Bowls, right? That is the differentiating factor between the two of them.
That is not the differentiating factor between the two of them at all.
Okay.
Listen, I think that this is a great transition point on the topic of terrible people. Unless you guys have more to say on this topic.
No, I think I do
have one more thing to say at least.
Okay. The only other thing I was going to say is, Robert Kraft and Woody Johnson are just not the pedigree of owner that James Dolan is. That is a great guy.
Considering we're not getting the Optimum sponsorship, I want to be real. He also sucks as a human being.
James Dolan kept Woody Johnson out of Manhattan. You watch your mouth.
Whoa. I mean, you haven't been here for weeks, and you just come back and you talk like this about.
Yes, I have. I've done some research on the matter. And I don't think I.
The guy he should have known. He should have known. He should have known. What else do you want from this guy? What else do you?
How could you disparage our king like that?
I think you still have a James Dolan background at the ready.
No, they don't delete. It's fine.
I do think it's great that
JD
it's just at
shot.
the ready.
Oh
JD and the straight shots. I don't know if I still have one. I think I had elected to not do that back in the day. But
I still have a Christmas tree up, so You guys are doing
Oh,
better than me.
whoop.
I have the
There we go.
Rainforest Cafe. I have one the Garden was Eden, and I have a Yukon baseball one for when we do the.
CBI.
No, I don't know, man. I'm struggling to find an owner that I can objectively be like, hey, this is a good person. Like, I don't know if you guys saw, because I mentioned it once on the Discord, but I thought it was funny that Pablo Torre, who's been doing investigative journalism on the NBA, and he
Big
was the
fan.
one who found out about like the Kawhi Leonard situation and things like that. So they're kind of like, I feel like they got it out for him. Recently found out that it's very possible that the owner of the Memphis Grizzlies could be supporting the war in Russia directly by providing them military technology against Ukraine. And so people are like, hey, how's your day going? Did you find out that your owner might be like the major benefactor of Russia eliminated Ukraine off the map? It's like suddenly the John Morant stuff doesn't look so bad. But I don't think I feel I need to find an owner that I can objectively be like, hey, this is a good person. Like even the Mets owner, who I want to love so much, and Stephen Cohen is a hedge fund manager.
Hey, victimless
And
crimes, man. Victimless crimes. It's fine.
I think there's some victims to the hedge fund managing. I think
It's fine.
you know, like now, granted, I don't know. I mean, we've got a lot of horrible things to navigate when it comes to owners, but and of course with the Patriots because that's what they're known for. But the brilliant thing about this is that when the Tuck rule came about, they like to change rules for the Patriots and for the Bills. When the Bills complain a lot, they got the OT changes. The Patriots got the Tuck rule. They kind of made a new rule on the spot for them. I
Mhm.
did think that in true Patriot fashion, it was very sweet that they talked about like removing some voters off the panel because of the Bill Belichick thing. I think that like to really keep the lore going in order for the Patriots, they need to just get rid of those voters because it wouldn't be right for them to allow them to have free speech or do the right thing. They need to protect the Patriots. They need to protect Bill Belichick and make sure they change these rules immediately. I think that if you turn around and you say that he's not a first ballot Hall of Famer, that it's okay to be removed from your job. That would be what would be the Patriot way. I think. I think it's the proper thing to do at the end of the day. So I'm proud of the NFL for stepping up and turning around and saying, we're going to change the rules for the Patriots one last time because nothing would honor the Bill Belichick legacy, I think, more than making up rules on the spot and using them to benefit the Patriots. So.
It's interesting you say that because, if I remember you back in the day in baseball, the one very brave voter voted to keep Derek Jeter unanimous Hall of Famer. If this was the NFL, they probably would have had him assassinated. So, like,
I gotta be honest though, Yankees fans who are known naturally for being rational people and very much in control of their emotions wanted that guy named and slaughtered, right? So, like, I do think it's interesting that we're right back here with the whole situation with Bill Belichick. I mean, now Jeter Jeter wasn't a cheater. He just wasn't the best shortstop on his own team. But that's a much different classification than a guy who like cheats in the NFL.
Yeah, I don't think
right. So like,
all right, let's get into this. Let's get into this because I'm just
the Jeter thing or Belichick cheating because neither of these are good looks for you.
The Jeter thing, like he
was not the best shortstop on his own team.
I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the Hall of Fame. Like he is without a doubt a Hall of Fame shortstop, a Hall of Fame baseball player.
Agree.
Absolutely.
Then why keep him? And this is not a Derek Jeter. This is not a Derek Jeter argument. This is a ballot argument. Like I cannot stand the people who vote on the MLB Hall of Fame that just say, "Oh, well, I don't think anyone should be a first ballot Hall of Famer, so I'm just not going to vote for anyone this year." Like that's bullshit. Like that's absolute BS. Like
I honestly felt that way for a long time until it did something negative for Derek Jeter, and I suddenly thought it was really funny.
But
I all the time was like, you know what? I think it's dumb. Like I think the whole concept.
It happened to Ichiro, and those guys.
I think it's ridiculous. Like
those guys are first ballot Hall of Famers.
Like guys like Ken Griffey and Ichiro who are true first ballot Hall of Famers. I think it's horrendous. Like I also think the idea is stupid that like on year one you're like I'm not going to vote for this guy as a Hall of Famer, and 6 years later you're like you know what? I thought about it. His stats haven't changed. I thought about it. Now he's a Hall of Famer. His percentage has gone up. I'm like, this is actually hilarious to me. I completely agree with your argument, except in the frame of when it hurt Derek Jeter, because that was really funny. And I thought that was a really important part of history.
I mean, listen, I like my only, I guess, actual point of not voting Derek Jeter is that there are better baseball players that were not unanimous that should be, like Ken Griffey and Ichiro.
The seal was already broken at that point, right? Like Mariano Rivera already got in,
and he deserved that,
and he absolutely deserves it. And I'm not disparaging Ken Griffey Jr. He 100% should have been unanimous, but at that point the seal was broken, right? We already have a unanimous one. Let's just keep it rolling, right? Like I
agree to disagree.
Yeah.
Listen, are you going to look me in the eye and tell me that that Derek Jeter was a better shortstop than Mariano Rivera was a closer? You're going to tell me that?
I think
one should be above the other.
I think objectively the position itself had a larger impact on the team than relief pitcher.
But we're talking about we're talking about the positioning individually, because that's how you vote for. Ronald Rivera was a better closer than Derek Jeter was a shortstop. So you know what? I'm okay with somebody getting a slight edge over somebody else in that instance.
A slight what?
A slight edge over somebody. There you go, buddy.
This is an interesting one, actually. I like now I'm thinking about because I think objectively Mariano was much more impactful and also a better person than Derek Jeter. But then also I don't know, you know?
Some of that post stuff.
Yeah, this is the post Hall of Fame stuff. I don't know.
I hate when I spend such a long time looking up to a guy baseball wise. I think this first happened with Omar Vizquel. I believe it was him that I was wow, this is one of the best players I've ever seen handle the glove. And then it turned out he was an objectively horrible person.
Yeah.
And I feel so bad about that because Mariano's kind of the same thing where I'm that's the greatest closer I've ever watched. And I'm I really wish that I kind of wish you guys would just retire into anonymity and just have normal, non-hurtful careers and things like that.
Yeah.
No, it's tough because
it is.
So the Never Meet Your Heroes thing is so interesting because and this is a legitimate thought. I do think in certain aspects, we make something of certain people that they're not, right? Just because someone is good at hitting a baseball does not mean they share the same moral standpoints I do, right? So in the aspect of the fact that you my hero in the sense of you hit a baseball really well and I like what you do there, you're still my hero in that regard, right? But I don't expect you to necessarily be my moral champion. In the same way that my political champions, I don't expect them to hit a baseball the way that I expect my heroes to do, right? So I think it's a tough argument because it's one of those things where, yeah, I agree with that too. We assume because they're good at things that we like, that they may also be useful to society in other areas. The reality is quite often it's not. And I mean, it's the same thing. I don't expect my favorite politician to go out there and hit the game-winning home run. And I don't expect the guy who hit the game-winning home run to also support the things that I support politically. It's a tough one. But
no, it's the same thing I always ran into with Tiger Woods, right? One of the greatest golfers of our era with just a horrible off the course record, right? I mean, and it's difficult to differentiate, but there's no denying the fact that he is one of the best golfers of all time.
Right. And he was also objectively better when he was cheating.
Right.
Statistically, he was.
Yes. And no, but
that's what sucks though, right?
No, and I think the other thing too is you look at how he is on the golf course, right? And you talk about athletes who are miles ahead of everyone else during their time, right? You talk about Jordan, you talk about Gretzky, you talk about Tiger Woods, right? And it's a matter of focus, right? And there are certain characteristics that you can hone in on and say, I can appreciate that. I can appreciate what they do when they're doing the thing that they're good at, right?
Right.
That they excel at. But
I
can't accept what they do outside of that. You know what I mean?
Well, I think you guys just need better heroes because my boy Pete Alonso is just perfection all on and off the field, Yeah.
So I have to ask you guys because you have more of a hockey understanding than I do now. So I'm just curious: is Wayne Gretzky an asshole, or is he considered to be a nice person?
I've heard he's a nice guy.
because I've always found that the exception to the rule in my like, Michael Jordan's an asshole, right? But like all of these really really dynamic GOAT level sports players tend to be jackasses,
Yeah,
right? And then there's Wayne Gretzky, who I hear is apparently just a really nice person, and a part of me is really intrigued by that because Wayne Gretzky is then like the exception that proves the rule, because when you think about like some of the better players in the history of sports across the board, they generally tend to be assholes at different levels of assholes, right?
yeah,
Like, I was just talking about like there's literal criminal, like rapist, sex crime assholes. Then there's
yeah,
like, Belichick creepy because he's dating a 20-year-old, but like
right,
legal, sure,
yeah,
like it's kind of okay.
right.
Um, and Sarah says it's because he's Canadian,
That
which
that
is
yeah. So
honestly
not
that's
to
fair, right? Because
not
like
to
you can
yeah
hold.
not to stereotype, but it is in
So
his
is it the
DNA that
fact that like
he has
because
to be nice.
So
Yes.
is he the only exception because he's Canadian? Like, do we have any American sports examples of someone being like one
Well,
of the best at what they do,
I
and
mean,
like not a prick?
do you? I think you'd have to open it up a little bit. Like if we're talking about like great Hall of Famers, like we mentioned two of them before, Ken Griffey Jr. and Ichiro. Never heard a
Right, but
bad
I'm
thing
talking
said
about
about
like
him.
the goat level thing, and like Griffey. Granted, if he stayed healthy, he could have been a goat. And I love Griffey; he's one of my favorite players of all time. So like, I'm one of the worst people to get into that because I will say really nice things about Griffey forever, right? And he's definitely a nice person, and is now I think like a photographer with Randy Johnson, and they're just having a great life. Like, no, but see, for that
No,
makes
yeah,
me
no,
happy, right? When I was talking about like,
he
hey,
is
like
objectively a good guy.
Randy Johnson and Griffey Jr. out there just taking random photos of birds and baseball and sports events, and they're having the time of their lives. That's fine to me. Like, be that kind of guy to me. Like I don't want to find out 5 years later, like you were like beating your wife or something. Like leave that to like John Jones. Like he's already beat his wife enough. Like he's covered that category for you guys. Like it's
Right.
fine. He's done it already. It doesn't
I,
need to be done again.
I mean,
But
if you open it up to like, granted, I know it's not, it's scripted, but like WWE, John Cena, um, seems like a
okay,
pretty great guy. I
so
mean, like
here's
the
an actual
absolute
question
record of
because since we're not actually doing the New York Power Hour clearly, we're just kind of bullshitting a little bit, right? Here is a legitimate question I'll ask the two of you because we're talking. John Cena is objectively on his own for the merit of his own stuff a good person, right? He's like the Make-A-Wish leader. He's given his life to like the company and doing stuff for kids and charities and things like that. So John Cena in that regard has done a lot of really good things, right?
Mhm.
He's also worked under like a horrible person in Vince and stuff like that, and makes it very clear that he's a company man now and isn't really like going off the rails to say negative things about Vince, right? Do you hold something like that against John Cena to say like, all right, you profited from this system, you got out okay, and you refuse to renounce the evils because you benefited from it? Like, does
no,
that work against you as a person, or do you kind of give him a pass because of all the rest he's done with the rest of his time?
I don't hold that against him because there was never any. His name was never even brought anywhere close to any of that stuff that went on. Listen, I mean, at the end of the day, he did a lot of great stuff, but it is a job. You shouldn't have to be held accountable for everything that your company that you work for does, or the people that are higher ups in those organizations. Like that's not his fault that Vince McMahon was allegedly a giant sex pest. Um, and at the same time, it's like yeah, maybe he could say something about it, but like he does have a personal relationship with these people. Um, I don't expect that he needs to speak out about it, but like he's also not going out of his way to defend Vince McMahon. Also, in the same token, he's
Yeah,
just basically like a "it is what it is" kind of situation.
I think what he's been able to accomplish and the persona that he's created inside of the environment that he works in, I think speaks even larger volumes to who John Cena is, right? I mean, it's very clear that the WWE was toxic for a number of years under Vince McMahon, and again, just John Cena rising above that and being better, being yeah, I mean, objectively better than what was going on in the WWE. I think really speaks to who John in John is as a person. And I can't fault someone for being loyal. I can't fault someone for being loyal to the company that gave him that platform, right? He has utilized this platform to be a good person. So no, I don't think being a part of the WWE is a knock on John Cena as a human being. Ram, you have other thoughts, or I have additional thoughts on the WWE if you wanna hear them.
I'll let you continue as long as you don't act like Edge is a 69-time world champion.
He's a 74-time world champion.
Yeah, you know what? It's up to 75 now. And you saw right through me because I was probably going to spend about the next 30 minutes talking about how Edge is the greatest wrestler of all time.
Yeah, you think you know him. Come on, guys.
On this day, I see clearly. Edge is a great wrestler. One of the best I've ever seen and witnessed. And I wish he received more credit. I wish, Peter didn't just inherently go to John Cena, because Edge, Sexton Hardcastle is just a stand-up human being as well.
I mean, if we're talking about stand-up human beings,
but Edge and Christian are also Canadian, aren't they?
Yeah, yes, it's in their blood.
That doesn't count, right? If we're not giving Wayne Gretzky credit, we can't give because look at the opposite of it. John Cena's from Boston. Genetically, he should be a horrible person. So he had to overcome a lot just to be able to be a decent human being, right? I don't understand what's so funny about that. We were just talking about the New England Patriots. Do we not? Are we now suddenly do we now suddenly be like, oh, Boston, that's the greatest place?
Is John Cena's goat
status and the Fry's donuts?
It is 100% a matter of perspective, because if there was a Boston Power Hour, they'd be like, oh, so and so's from New York, and so therefore they're a bad person.
Yeah, well, that's great. They're allowed to be wrong. We allow people to be wrong on this. It's an era of free speech. It's not like nobody's gonna come to the door and go knock on them and be like, hey, with a sideways cap and a Dunkin' Donuts bottle and be like, hey, just try to bait them and get them. No, it's living in Boston, West Virginia. I agree with you. See, I don't understand. It's genetically John Cena. I think the opposite of being from Canada is being from Boston. I think that's what's so special about it, right? If I had to give John Cena his due credit, right? If we're going to say that Wayne and Edge and Christian, those type of guys, it's a situation where it's in their blood because they're Canadian, right? We need to be honest about the fact that what was in John Cena's blood was a lot more vile and demonic because he's from Boston. And the fact that he was able to overcome that in his own is actually pretty respectful. That might be something. Again,
along with the toxic environment in the WWE. Just one more note on Wayne Gretzky. And yes, inherently he is a nice guy because he's from Canada, and I wholeheartedly believe that.
Are you about to give me lore about Wayne Gretzky not being a good person?
No. I will make him sound an even better person, right? So everyone recognizes Wayne Gretzky as the GOAT. He himself does not recognize himself as the GOAT, because he's willing to recognize that he played in a different era of hockey, right? And even himself would say, if you took Austin Matthews, if you took Sidney Crosby, if you took Alexander Ovechkin, and you put them in the era of hockey that he played in, they probably would have been as successful, if not more successful, in terms of point values. And he has said that on air, and I think that is super humble of him.
I will say this about Wayne Gretzky: when Alex Ovechkin broke his goal record, he did say on TV, well, how many assists does he have? Which is objectively hilarious.
Yeah.
But going back to John Cena, Ram, you asked if, his GOAT level status of good person is hurt by working with the WWE. I disagree. If anything, if you want to renounce his good, GOAT status or say he's a good person or not, I think he should be docked points for not talking about the atrocities of Bill Belichick, the New England Patriots, being from Boston. I think that's the bigger stain on his
I don't know if I know that John is supposed to be from Boston and he is supposed to be a sports guy, but the amount of merch that has come out from every city in the world with John Cena on it, I feel like it's one of those things where, you can't hold him accountable to being a fan of any sports team. I'd actually call him a poser if he's like, oh, I love the Red Sox. I'd be like, really? You wore a Yankees jersey. Stop. Please don't. This is not
everybody likes money.
Yeah, like he's a lot closer to like being that kind of guy. I remember like John had multiple like he would go to get like face reactions by like wearing a hometown jersey of like whatever team was there or something. So I
Yeah.
mean I don't know. I can't hold John accountable for those things because I already know that he's fake. But in terms of it's a thought that I pose because for me it is interesting in the sense of like you're in a toxic situation. You benefit from a toxic situation. You know, you get out and the situation is almost made for you. Right? I mean, it's not to say John didn't do anything, right? He obviously was a very unique and special person to shoulder the burden that he did for WWE. And I respect that, right? Because not only physically the strain, mentally, there's a lot that goes on to having to be John Cena. And the fact that there is nothing that has come out that makes me think that like John Cena himself is a sex criminal or John Cena is like a bad person. Yeah, I mean he might be a little weird or something in his relationships or something, but I'm not going to knock somebody for being a little anal in a relationship or a marriage, right? Like I don't think that that's crazy. Um, the Vince stuff I think is hard because some of these guys though are so painfully loyal to the WWE, which I kind of agree with you, Luke. I can't necessarily blame you for that because like loyalty isn't a bad thing inherently. But like you take guys like John and The Undertaker, and like they were probably witness to some of like and Brock Lesnar even, right? Because he was named in that lawsuit too.
I think Brock
You
was a
have
little bit more than a witness.
right, so like as I was saying, like he was named in the lawsuit, and like let's say Undertaker and John were witness to it because they've been around for so long, and they were prime beneficiaries of like being on good side of Vince, right?
Right.
They knew what was going on, and they're never really gonna go out and be like, yeah, Vince is a terrible person because I guess they feel respect for him and they feel that they owe him something, and in a way they do. So it's a difficult one. I don't really know how I feel. I don't know if I can hold that against John because at the end of the day, like I said, I don't hate John as a person. I do think he's done pretty amazing things with the platform that he's been given and is definitely an iconic human being. I just I guess there's a part of me that wishes somebody would kind of speak out and say like, "Hey, by the way, like it was this bad." Like, and maybe it'll come years down the line when like Vince has passed away or something. I don't know. That would make me upset, honestly, because if like he passes away and then suddenly everyone's like, "You know what? By the way, this is actually what went on day to day from Vince," and they
Right.
start talking about that. I think that's kind of weak.
Yeah.
But
Well,
you know,
and at this point, I mean, at this point too, I mean, I mean, socially at this point, Vince McMahon's dead, right? Like, I don't think for him there's any coming back, right? So, to say that he needs to be physically off this earth, for him, to say bad things about him, I don't know. It seems like a cop out because at this point you can jump on him, and no one's even going to question you at this point. Like if you,
right? I agree with that.
right. So I mean, I don't know. I don't see it happening after Vince's death either. You know,
I would hope it doesn't change after he passes, is what I'm
right.
saying. So we agree on that, because I
Yeah.
would think that's
Because
kind of a
then,
weak
because
way
then
to like.
again, to me, then that just it speaks to loyalty, right? Vince can do all of these bad things. He can be a total menace, whatever it is. But he did give me a job. Like he gave me an opportunity. He gave me an opportunity to become one of the most decorated WWE superstars of all time, right? And I think I've said this to you guys before. Again, it's scripted, it's already pre-written, but that has to be one of the coolest things ever to win a match and like hold up the WWE championship, hold up the world heavyweight championship and just be cheered by a bunch of fans. Like that had like the elation, the serotonin that has to be going through your body when that happens, like has to be phenomenal. And to be granted that opportunity, yeah, I would be a little loyal to that.
Yeah, I mean, listen, it's certainly a culmination of the years and years that you put into this. So obviously, like, yeah, it's predetermined, but like, it's still a very great accomplishment. I'm, but listen, wrestling, it's especially back in the day, the only show in town was WWE. So like, it sucks, but like these people have families and like they got to take care of their kids and their wife or whatever. Like you can't speak out against Vince or the terrible things if you want a job. Now obviously there's more options. You have AEW, TNA has a pretty solid TV deal. There's there's other shows in town. Back in the day, it was pretty much WWE or nothing.
Right.
Not everyone is going to be a Mick Foley. So, but listen.
Yeah, I think this is true too. I mean, you can love the WWE and hate Vince. It's true, right? But I get the distinction I'm making is guys that like, if you get into WWE now, right? I can fully believe it's like, hey, you can love the WWE and hate Vince, right? But like, John and like the Mark Calloways, the Undertakers of the world, like I feel like they don't hate Vince. I feel like they look at a more complicated situation where they're like, hey, because he kind of gave them a life. Right, I mean, like, realistic. Yes, WWE was built on the back of its superstars, but those guys wouldn't have had a platform like on their own. Like John Cena was built through the WWE machine, the Undertaker too, those type of things, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so it's got to be tough because I agree with you. I mean, on a personal level, Luke, it's tough. If somebody gave me an opportunity to be like a WWE champion, right? I mean, like that level of exposure, that level of elation, that kind of payoff to hard work, that there is some kind of concept of if I work hard, it will lead to something. It's tough because like their entire life could be essentially like on the and I see Ed is commenting the same thing. Wouldn't I be conflicted if I owed my millions of dollars to Vince? I absolutely would. I do think that that's an honest thought, like, and it must be a tough one for some of these guys because again, like speaking specifically of guys like Taker and Lesnar and Cena, I mean, Lesnar might have been able to do other things, sure, but I feel like Taker and Cena specifically because they stayed there so long and they've also never been anywhere but WWE. I mean, those are real company guys.
Yeah.
They owe their livelihoods to Vince McMahon. And so it's kind of like a tough one because it's like a literal deal with the devil, right? And so I don't know, man. It's hard for me to sit there, and I don't know if I'm holding him to an impossible standard. That's why I kind of asked you guys your opinions because I'm like, I should be fair, right? I don't want to sit there and say, John Cena is undeserving of certain things because he won't speak out against Vince. Because God knows how I feel about Vince. Everyone knows how I feel about Vince. It's obviously like he's not a good person, and what he has created pales in comparison to like the damage he's done to people. So it's kind of like one of those, but it's a spectacle. It is something, and it's part of our history. We can't ignore it. I don't know. I think you guys are right that I do kind of have to give them a little bit of leeway in the sense of like they owe their lives to Vince McMahon.
Yeah.
At least these specific guys,
And
right?
you know what?
And it was the time it was the only option.
Think about it this way too. Because of the platform that Vince McMahon gave John Cena, he was able to, touch the lives of. Seems like a weird.
Were you about to say
phrase.
He was able to touch children? Because that was
No.
an all time.
Yeah.
Well, he was able- listen,
this is giving
No,
very
he was-
predators in the community vibes here. Like,
I know, because I understand the sentiment of what you were saying, but it sounded like you were about to be like, hey, because of the platform Vince gave John, he was able to touch millions of children. And I was going to say, okay, hold on. I get it.
He spent time with Woody Johnson on the airplane to Epstein Island.
And not to get too deep in my personal views here, but like I agree with that. There's no billionaire in the world who has completely clean hands. I do think you're not getting that successful without like some kind of story behind it. It's definitely there's something there. The WWE is a classic public example of that kind of stuff. Woody Johnson, of course, a man whose name I still don't think is real, is a billionaire and gets to run an NFL team into the ground. And I don't know. I'm granted he's got different skeletons in his closet, as does Robert Kraft, as we talked about.
Yeah. So speaking of NFL teams and New York NFL teams, I know I've disavowed this team. I've written them off as a New York team, but the Buffalo Bills are located in New York, and they have made a coaching decision. They have decided to upgrade Joe Brady from offensive coordinator to head coach after firing Sean McDermott after their second round loss, an overtime loss to the Denver Broncos. I know, Ram, you weren't on last week, and I think we touched upon the McDermott firing. What are your thoughts on that and them moving Joe Brady into the head coach spot?
I don't think they know what they're doing because I think you and I talked about this a bit in person because I think this happened when we were talking in person, but I thought that I think at the end of it, you firing McDermott is the scapegoat firing. You should have fired the GM, right? And now the fact that you fired McDermott, but you moved Brady up from OC to head coach.
Yep.
I mean, unless you're bringing McDermott back as a defensive coordinator, which would be the funniest thing that I've ever seen in my life.
You know what? It's happened before.
Right. But usually it takes a few years.
Yeah.
Right? it takes a few years usually. Like I think it happened with the Broncos. I think their
It is
defensive coordinator was a former.
Vance Joseph was the head
Yeah,
coach. They hired Sean Payton, and they brought back Vance Joseph as the defensive coordinator.
right.
Crazy.
So like I know that it's not the craziest thing, but I feel like it should take some time. I know that the Chiefs are going back to Eric Bieniemy, but it's a weird one for me because it feels like you're saying that Sean McDermott's responsible for the failures of the Bills, and that Brady should have been given credit for what he was doing because you're promoting him essentially, and you're getting rid of Sean McDermott. So and you're keeping the GM. So essentially, what you're saying is that Sean McDermott was the only problem in the
Right.
Bills organization, and I do think the bigger issue they had alongside their playmaking was their roster construction. So for me, I mean, if I'm criticizing the roster construction, I am criticizing the playmaking. I agree, but I'm not going to let the roster construction go without being like actually said as a problem. So at the end of the day, I would have fired the GM and the coach and just got a fresh start, right? I mean, you have a beautiful situation with Josh Allen and James Cook for anybody to walk into. You could have attracted some of the best talent. And so you went ahead and now you're promoting Brady and he's going to be calling plays again. I always think that's dumb, by the way, when you're like, oh, we're getting this guy in, but he's going to be calling plays. Because if the offensive coordinator got moved to head coach and he's calling plays, what are we bringing the offensive coordinator in? Like, is he going to bring coffee to Brady? Like, is he just going to be like, hey, man, good job calling the plays? Like, I'll just hang out over here in the corner and meditate, like positive reinforcement. You got it, like
Yeah.
cheerleader stuff. Um, but no, I think that they're kind of moving in the wrong direction, honestly. Maybe they're right. Maybe Sean McDermott was, the devil incarnate, and they were really upset about his 9/11 comments. And maybe they thought, okay, we need a better guy to lead this team than somebody that likens a New York football team to Al Qaeda. Maybe that was kind
Should
of
have
a
hired
problem
John
for
Cena.
them. I think maybe it could have been a problem for them. So maybe they said, you know what? At least Brady's not going to go up there and compare my team to Al Qaeda. We'll give him the shot as the head coach, and we'll figure it out from there. I honestly don't know, but I think they're moving in the wrong direction. If unless they really somehow think that Sean McDermott's the devil, and I didn't look at it that way, but I
But
could be wrong.
I think for me, if you're gonna scapegoat Sean McDermott, right? Clear house, right?
Right.
Everyone's gone. Get everyone out. Let's get something new, right? If the narrative is Sean McDermott, we have the roster to make the Super Bowl. We've had that roster for years now, and Sean McDermott can't get us over the hump. Clear house. Get everyone out.
Right.
Start anew. Find a coach that you believe is going to get you over the hump, right? And I don't know who that coach is, right? I can't name that coach for you. That coach was probably John Harbaugh, but he was gone by the
Yeah,
time.
I was going to say I was thinking of John Harbaugh myself. I got to be honest.
I will be fair to the Bills organization. There was no shot that they were getting John Harbaugh. There was no shot. The Giants had him snatched up by the time they fired Sean McDermott. He was already a New York Giant. So there was no way of bringing in John Harbaugh, right? I don't know. I don't know if there are just intangibles from Joe Brady that they really liked, but I think you're better off with a whole new regime that probably had just as good intangibles as Joe Brady.
100% agree. Yeah, that defense was anemic this year. They had plenty of holes, and that's not the coach's fault. That's the GM's fault.
Right.
I think, if anything, you could argue that Sean McDermott overachieved this year, and you fired him for it.
Yeah.
So, no, I don't know what they're going to do over there because, I mean, Sean McDermott's got to be a popular free agent too, right? I assume somebody's going to take him.
How many coaching jobs are left? I think I know the Browns. I know the Browns hired Todd Monken today.
The Browns were having their issues. The Jets still need a defensive coordinator, actually. No, they do. It's a really
they really do. They really do. But I read today, and this is something.
Oh no, sorry. They need an offensive coordinator, actually, Peter. Right? I'm getting that wrong because they hired the defense. They hired a guy that used to work for Aaron.
They said Aaron Glenn is still going to call the plays.
I have the same. I can't tell you how mad I was reading Jets stuff. Honestly, since we have a little time, I want to just complain about the fact that the Jets are stupid. So the Jets got rid of their offensive coordinator like a week ago, And it was the brilliant move because everyone else had already kind of made their firings and had started their hiring cycles. And the Jets kind of woke up like a month later and were like, oh, yeah, we should get rid of our offensive coordinator. And so now there's not that many offensive coordinator options that are available for the Jets. The Jets don't have a quarterback, so it's not a great situation for an offensive coordinator anyway. And you got rid of the guy after 1 year that you probably would have been better off just letting him kind of exist this year instead of trying to fire him and get somebody else who's probably going to be in a revolving door situation. And so they were able to figure that out, an offensive coordinator, which was brilliant because they were keeping Aaron Glenn after his horrible performance. He's clearly on thin ice and has just this year to figure it out. Okay. And now a defensive coordinator, you released about 6 days ago the 8 guys that you were looking at for defensive coordinator and then hired none of those guys and actually went back and hired somebody who worked under Aaron Glenn when he was on the Detroit Lions as a defensive game coordinator.
Yeah.
And this was under the times that Aaron Glenn had some not so outstanding years defensively, statistically, coaching the Lions. So it's kind of a funny thought to me because I have no idea what the Jets are doing. And I don't think the Jets have any idea what they're doing. I think the fact that Dante Moore turned around and said he was going to go back to college and not declare from the draft has caused them to like set all of their notes on fire and they just don't care. They're just like, you know what? It's okay. We're just going to have a screw it year that we can't do anything this year. There's no way the Jets are even going to contend for the playoffs. We're just going to have fun and figure it out.
You know, you bring up the Dante Moore point, and I thought about it afterwards, and you know, I was like, because my first reaction was, okay, he's increasing his draft stock by going back. Bro, you're like second overall. Like how much higher can your draft stock get, right? And this is 100%. You're absolutely right. He did not want to play for the New York Jets. He had no desire to play for the New York Jets and just wanted to go back to Oregon. I'm sure, you know, you can make the argument NIL money, fine. Like he'll make more in college than he will his rookie season in the NFL. But it's playing for the damn NFL, right? It's getting to be the highest draft pick. And there is no guarantee you are going to be the second overall pick next year. I would actually go as far to say he is less guaranteed for the second overall pick next year. I agree with
that 100%. That he's less guaranteed.
And he is hindering his long-term, his longevity in the NFL, his long-term economics, just to not play for the Jets. And yes, that is one that should have been eye-opening for the New York Jets. And by gosh, they just know how to mess these things up. I know, Peter. We're totally just piling it on. And I'll shift us. I will shift us very quickly here to a topic that you and I talked about very briefly, and I want to hear your thoughts on air about this. So we'll shift from offensive coordinator for the New York Jets to new offensive coordinator for the Tennessee Titans, former Giants head coach Brian Daboll. And so here we are. We have Robert Saleh as the head coach, former New York Jets head coach, and Brian Daboll.
Familiar.
Brian Daboll.
Mm-hmm.
So is this a situation where two wrongs make a right, or is this just planned failure for the Tennessee Titans?
Let me tell you, that is just, it's beautiful. You're building a new stadium that, for all intents and purposes, I've seen the mock-ups. I saw it in person. I didn't think it looked impressive. So I looked at some of the mock-ups. It looks strikingly similar to the exterior of MetLife. That is not a compliment. So on top of that, you're like, you know what? Let's hire two failed New York head coaches to run our team, and our offense. What a absolute, just perfect, beautiful move.
Just a quick aside too. Peter's comments were so shocking about the Tennessee Stadium that it actually caused someone to drive off onto the other side of the road. Just a total side note there, but yes,
Luke, I'm really glad that that timed up perfectly, so that you can use me as the excuse for driving on the wrong side of the road, allegedly, because it could be anybody else.
I was so, you know what?
I didn't want
to, thank you for throwing me under the bus here. But I was so taken back by your comment about the stadium because it's not even close to finish. And like you just called it a piece of shit.
Yeah, speaking of throwing people under the bus, you almost drove us under a literal bus when you were.
No.
I think that was impressive.
There were no
when
buses.
You think about it, you were completely so. I think you're misremembering.
There
was an actual bus you could have thrown us under when you were driving on the wrong side of the road.
There were zero buses. And I was so taken back by Peter's comments about the half-finished stadium that was still being built in the middle of Nashville.
Well, based off the renderings, it's not going to look much better anyway. But speaking of that trip, Ram, how's your friend Ezekiel doing?
I don't have a friend named Ezekiel, so I think that's brilliant. Moving on from imaginary friends who wouldn't have saved me from dying on Luke driving on the wrong side of the road. I would like to say I do think that the Titans are moving in a really interesting direction. I don't really know whether or not Robert Saleh is going to be a good head coach because I honestly, we were talking about it before. I do think it was a little bit of both worlds where like the Jets sucked, but Saleh also sucked. So I don't know if he necessarily is going to do good over there. I think hiring a high-end offensive coordinator like Daboll for a guy that they have, for between head coach, offensive coordinator, defense coordinator for the Titans, they have 39 years of head coaching record compared to 0 years last year. I got to be honest with you. I think Daboll is a brilliant hire for the Tennessee Titans. I have to be very honest with you about this. If Saleh has weaknesses, they're going to be on the offensive side. You need a strong offensive mind who knows how to work with a young mobile quarterback. Daboll is a perfect fit for that. And Cam Ward is definitely somebody who has showed a lot more potential than what the Titans were able to do last year. I objectively, I think it's a great hire. I think Daboll is a better hire than Saleh. I don't know what's going to happen with Saleh, but people already did like his personality here. So maybe he's a personality hire over there. He calls some good defensive plays because he is a good defensive coordinator. And Daboll runs the offense, and they figure something out. I do think the Titans are going to have a much better next year than they were this year. And these are guys that, the one thing that's funny to me, at least, and this is not to defend Robert Saleh because he could suck ass, right?
He does.
The NFL is one of the few places that I find that it's so funny. We look at experience as a negative thing. Like, we look at experience in the role as, oh, this is a problem, we don't want that, even though, like, in a lot of work-related environments, it's not necessarily, like, a bad thing. We see a lot of coaches get cycled in sports like that, but I feel like in the NFL, they use it in a much more heavy sense where they're like, oh, this is a bad thing, experience is a bad thing, the fact that he was a bad coach before, he can't be good now. But a lot of these guys do better on their second tour than they do on their first tour. Right? Not everyone figures it out the first time around. Now, granted, again, that doesn't mean that Saleh is going to be good, right? He could also suck. And I do stand by the fact I think Daboll is the more important hire of the two because if they're going to find something out of Cam Ward, they're going to find it through Daboll's offensive coordinating, right? Yep. Some of these guys are just meant to be coordinators. I got to be real. And that's like Todd Bowles is a guy like that, right? Former Jets coach too, who was a much better coordinator than he ever was a head coach, right? And then there's some guys like Adam Gase who like shouldn't exist. They don't even need to have anything. So like Mike McDaniels is now I think going to be offensive coordinator for the Chargers, right?
Yep.
I think that's a great move. Right. Yeah. That should be fun. So I don't mind the switching around in that regard. But I think the Titans are going to be a lot more interesting. I just think it's funny that they managed to pick like New York retreads and they're hoping to figure it out. And I hope to God that Nissan Stadium doesn't look like MetLife Stadium because MetLife is not a good-looking stadium.
Absolutely.
The most shocking thing, the Titans, they should have just never fired Vapor. Like,
no, that's
they were
that's a totally different argument. I mean, and I 100% agree with that. I think it was such a snap decision by ownership to get rid of Vrabel. And then I think they got rid of the GM about 6 months later when it really should have been the GM that went first. And Vrabel he was a victim of a really poor roster. And granted, I would say even before that, the roster was not built for the success that he brought, right? Ryan Tannehill was their quarterback.
And he
Ryan Tannehill. He's
And
yeah.
Sarah correcting herself, 39 years of combined play calling compared to Titans in 2024. Listen, the Titans played in 2024 like they had 0 years of combined play calling on their
Yeah.
staff.
No, it was
I fully believe they're going to play some better ball this year.
it was atrocious. I'll say this. I'll say this about the Saleh and Dable hiring. I'm not going to go as far to say it's a slam dunk, but I would say it's a sneaky good hire for both of them, right? If anything, Robert Saleh is a very good defensive coordinator. You saw what he done with the 49ers this past season. You saw what he did with the 49ers in his first stint. Very good coordinator. Brian Dable, a very good offensive coordinator. You saw what he did with Josh Allen, how he developed Josh Allen into one of the best quarterbacks in the league. I mean, Josh Allen was not good. Like, let's be real here.
Yes.
Josh Allen
this
was
is the
not,
truth of the matter. I agree 100%.
Josh Allen was not a good quarterback. He was not accurate. He was always very good with his legs, and Brian Dable figured something out for him, right? If they can do the same thing for Cam Ward, watch out. Just watch out. I think it's two sneaky good hires by the Titans, and I think it's very much under the radar. Again, I'm not going to go as far to say this is a slam dunk. This is going to work out, but if it does, kudos for the Titans for putting those two guys together. Other than that, I really don't have anything else in terms of New York sports. I think I have expressed all of the New York sports news that has existed, unless you all have anything else.
I have one more. I have one more thing.
Okay, good.
I'll keep it brief though. So obviously we know the New York Mets signed one Bo Bichette, and there was a particular city in America that wasn't a huge fan of it. After the announcement press conference, which one of the quotes that came was, "I came to the conclusion that it was very obvious that I wanted to be a Met." NBC Sports Philadelphia, who are the people that broadcast Phillies games, said, "See you at the bank, Bo." Number one, for Philadelphia to be so upset about it, obviously, player speak line that really doesn't mean anything is really funny. But number two, the bank it's a myth at this point. There's no aura in the bank. The Mets went in there in 2014, smacked them around. Like the Mets do not fear the bank anymore. And on top of that, Philadelphia, if we want to just talk about talk about your season, if you're not getting better, you're getting worse. Let's look at the teams around you. The Mets signed Bo Bichette, Devin Williams, traded for Marcus Semien and Freddie Peralta. Nats hired youngest manager and general manager ever. Marlins signed a solid reliever and have young potential. Braves have signed a solid reliever and have great potential. And Bryce Harper's getting blood transfusions in his house. So that's pretty much what your offseason looks like. So have fun with that.
I love the trying to put a positive spin on the Nationals and Marlins. Like, the Marlins didn't just like trade away two pitchers. The Nationals didn't just trade away one of the more exciting pitchers in the MLB to the Texas Rangers.
But Eury Perez,
they're doing things. They're doing things. They're both doing things, and the Phillies are not. I misspoke, and I do apologize. And I know we're a little bit over an hour now, but I do feel like my fill for New York Knicks talk is just empty right now, and I can really only turn to Ram for anything.
I was gonna say something.
Anything New York
Knicks.
And I've heard they aren't playing well. And I guess I have two questions. My first question is, why are they not playing well? I guess that's question 1A. 1B is are you concerned about how they're not playing well? And then question 2 is, are they going after Giannis? And I know this is a question that we have talked about previously, but it sounds like there's momentum for Giannis, not necessarily to New York, but it sounds like there's momentum that Giannis is going to be moving by the trade deadline, which I think is like 8 days.
Yeah, the trade deadline's in about a week or so, and I do think that I've generally believed throughout this process that Giannis was looking to be moved in the offseason because it made the best sense for both parties. I don't know exactly why this recent steam has been coming out where they're like Giannis is going to move now. I don't necessarily think it's going to happen. I got to be real. Like
Yeah,
I like Giannis a lot, and I don't think that I think he's going to move for sure. But I've always looked at it more as an off-season thing. And if he gets moved here at the deadline, I don't think that the Knicks are going to be the guys to do it because they've struggled from having a lack of chemistry on their teams and guys sticking together. Giannis is an amazing player, absolutely. I'm not trying to knock him. I'm just saying that I feel like they've always wanted to see what they have with their current core before they just jettison Cat. Because Milwaukee is also not necessarily looking to just get Carl Anthony Towns and a few random picks from the Knicks, right? I mean, Giannis is an incredible asset, and there's a lot of teams that are involved in trading for him that could offer a better package for Milwaukee's future than the Knicks could offer.
sure.
And realistically, so I just don't think that for multiple reasons, I don't think he gets moved to the deadline. And if he does get moved to the deadline, I don't think it's going to the Knicks. So I haven't given it much thought because I think it's just really fun for the media to say, like, Giannis to the Knicks because people will read it and listen. But I
Yeah.
don't think that's his most likely destination right now. It doesn't fit what Milwaukee is using in terms of what they're asking for in a deal. I don't think that they feel a pressure that they have to move him because even if Giannis is pissed off with them, fine, we'll just move you in the offseason. You know, like they're going to move him anyway. I don't think that there's any pressure that it saves them any trouble to be like, we're moving Giannis in a week rather than a couple months from now.
Is he
Um,
is he a free agent at the end of the season?
I have to double check because I think he signed an extension. So let me
Okay.
check that right now. Giannis has a contract right now that, thank you, Spot Rack, if you would just load in time while I'm talking about it, and it won't. But I do think that he has a huge contract that yes, so he's still under contract this year, next year. He has a player option for 27, 28, which most likely he would decline. So he would
Yep.
be with the team for at least one more year.
Okay.
And then he has a player option, and if he declines that, he's a free agent then. He's 31 this year, so he is getting a little bit older. He turns 32 in December. Now,
Yeah.
again, still a high level asset. I just think he's going to get moved. I just don't think that the Knicks are the right move right now. Now, if it comes down to the offseason of next, this upcoming offseason, and he's still available, and the Knicks like sputter, that they don't make it to the second round, they don't figure some things out, then I could very well see them making a move for Giannis and going all in, and Giannis kind of strong arming his way and saying, like, I want to go to the Knicks because
Yeah.
it has been clear that he has wanted to go to the Knicks. As for the Knicks' recent play, it's an interesting one because there was a point in time. I mean, the tough one is there's a lot of expectations on the Knicks. Right now, they are still the second seed in the Eastern Conference. They're 6 games behind the Detroit Pistons, who are over exceeding expectations, but I still don't see the Pistons as one of those teams where I'm like, oh, nobody's going to get past them. The Pistons have a lot of holes, and if you limit Cade Cunningham, they are a beatable team. So, although they're playing well, they're 34 and 11. I'm not going to sit there and act like they don't have, I think it's 6 games on the Knicks. Yeah, the Knicks are 29 and 18. The Pistons are 34 and 11. Right? So I'm not going to sit there and act like they just have a 1 or 2 game lead. They have the 1 seed. The Knicks are the 2. I think they're tied with the Celtics where they are. So not like they're a bad team. I just don't fear them in the way that I fear like an organization that might be like right now. I would say the Cavs and Boston are a lot more dangerous in the sense of I know that sounds crazy, but Boston and Jaylen Brown have figured some things out. And Donovan Mitchell's playing at MVP level. The Knicks can't seem to beat the Magic. We just beat the Pistons last year. They're generally working off the same roster. Kate is playing much better than he did before, but I feel like the Knicks could beat them. I also feel like the Knicks could beat Boston and Cleveland, but that's a different story. You know, their issue is the fact that they stopped playing proper defense, and they were doing this for a longer part of the season, but they were scoring enough that it wasn't an issue. The issue is that they were still continuing to play bad defense, but they also stopped shooting the ball well. And so it's just simple math, right? I mean, early on in the season, they were scoring enough to kind of mask their deficiencies, and then they stopped being able to do that. They had some injuries. They're trying to figure out their minutes distribution. Am I panicked? I'm going to say not yet. And the reason behind that is that I can see with the fact that we've had some injuries on the Knicks that Mike Brown is still kind of figuring out his real rotation. with Josh Hart coming back from injury, with McBride coming in and out, with Kolek stepping in at different points, he's kind of unsure as to like who his guys are and where his minutes rotation is exactly going to be in a rigid way. And this is the time you need to figure it out, not in the playoffs. We saw some moments in last year's playoffs where Tibbs was kind of figuring out new things on the fly mid game, and that was terrifying because it was like, why are you trying this rotation for the first time now in the playoffs down 15? We need to actually try this stuff out a month, 2 months, 3 months before. So I'm okay with them having a bit of a not so beautiful stretch right now if it leads to a more rigid rotation for Mike Brown and more answers for him down the line. So I'm not panicked yet. If another month passes by and it still feels like they're sputtering and they haven't figured out some team identity and things like that, I am going to start to worry a little bit more openly because they have shown a lot of cracks in the armor that they haven't been able to hold up to some better teams. But I do think a healthy Knicks squad could beat just about anybody in a playoff series, so I'm not freaking out yet. And you'll hear from me in about a week anyway, because I feel like they're going to make at least one acquisition at the trade deadline, but I think it's going to be a very low key one. I think they're going to look for a more mature guard. There's been talk about them looking at guys like Drew Holiday and things like that. I'm okay with looking into a veteran guard if you feel like that's what your lapse is, but I'm calm about it right now.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know enough about the Knicks, or I don't
No, it's
watch
okay.
enough. I don't watch enough about the Knicks to really rebut anything that you're saying. But yeah, it seems like it's a very interesting time for the New York Knicks, a team that has so much potential, and just not getting over the hump. It seems like it's an Eastern Conference this year that's very weak. And you just had the feeling at the beginning of the season that this was a conference that the Knicks could just roll over, and they're rolling over themselves, right? They've struggled against Boston this season too, correct?
Boston's played pretty well because Jaylen Brown's still good. I think they're like 101 against them. They have struggled against top teams. That's the issue with the Knicks. Right now, I think we hold the tiebreaker over them, thank God, for some reason or another. But it's okay. I mean, like I'm used to seeing some weird stuff with the Knicks. I mean, I think that we talked about it on this season when I said that it was kind of weird that they were doing so well. I was kind of expecting them to kind of sputter and figure it out later in the year. So the fact that they had some early success was kind of encouraging. I feel like this is about the level where I thought they would be. And if I'm being fair, at the end of the day, I mean, if you're the number 2 seed in the Eastern Conference and you're a couple games out of first place, and this is supposedly you guys are playing really bad, I can breathe a little right at the end of the day. I mean, yes, some other teams like Boston's playing better than people thought they would. Pistons are playing better than people thought they would, right? And the Knicks are playing lesser than people thought they would. Cool. Reason for worry? Yeah. But reason for like panic and like setting my pants on fire? Not necessarily. Right? It's a long season. We've got a lot of time to figure some things out. I know it's not exactly the sexy answer in terms of like you can clip this and have fun with it, but I think it's a realistic one.
Sure. Yeah. No, I think there's still something to be excited about with the New York Knicks roster. Maybe not time for panic, but you just start to worry. You worry a little bit. You worry a little bit at this time of the season. When you start to slip, Boston's catching up to you, and there's now this insurmountable gap between yourself and the Pistons. And hopefully that doesn't become the difference in an Eastern Conference Finals situation where you're playing 3 games in Madison Square Garden and they're playing 4 games in Detroit. You'd love to have that advantage, especially with how well they've played at Madison Square Garden this year. As opposed to other teams who play at Madison Square Garden this season, they've been phenomenal at home. So yeah, I mean,
Well,
just a
I'll,
lot
I'll,
to
I'll
watch
relieve
out.
you of I'll
Yeah,
relieve you of other teams playing at Madison Square Garden.
yeah.
But I will throw something to you guys actually before we head off because we've talked a little bit over, but I do think it's relevant and we'd like to talk baseball. So the prospect promotion situation, the prospect promotion incentive that MLB has is that you get an extra pick if they win Rookie of the Year, if they finish in the Rookie of the Year voting, and they were ranked on certain prospect lists, that being like MLB Pipeline, Baseball America, ESPN. So 2 out of those 3, if they make the top 100 and they end up in the finals for like Rookie of the Year voting, you get an extra pick. And so the Yankees and Mets both saw some guys end up on these lists. Obviously, of course, it was a little different for the Mets in the sense of they just traded 2 guys that were almost unanimously ranked top 100 across the board in Sproat and Jet Williams, right? But they still had a solid 4 that ended up on the list, and the Yankees had 2 on a few of these lists. Kyler McDaniels, ESPN's list, had George Lombard and Elmer Rodriguez, who apparently is not going by Elmer Rodriguez Cruz anymore. I learned in the recent week he's just going by Elmer Rodriguez. Originally, he was going by Elmer Rodriguez Cruz, so apparently he had a fight with his family. But he's ranked top 100. So is George Lombard, and I believe that they also on Pipeline received similar rankings. I'll have to confirm that, but ESPN's was the most recent to come out because it just came out a day ago. The Mets are getting 4 prospects still remaining after the trade, where they end up getting McLean, of course, Benj, Ewing, and Tong. Ewing's an interesting one because some people rank him in like the low hundreds, some people rank him in the highs, and same with Tong, where he's getting like really up and down different type of rankings, but he's ended up on there. Lombard seems to be the big guy for the Yankees, and I have to ask you, Luke. I mean, do you think that Anthony Volpe reads these things and gets really upset?
No, I don't think he reads these things and get upset. I think, I've said this a number of times. I think without the injury, and Anthony Volpe is going to be the starting shortstop for the New York Yankees opening day. I think that gets pushed back a little bit because he's still recovering from the shoulder surgery. Lombard is still probably a year out. I would say 2027 for George Lombard. And it's interesting because he has a very similar prospect build that Anthony Volpe had, right? Defense first, good speed, good contact, not a lot of power, right? So I don't know. I don't know if we're just getting Anthony Volpe 2.0 in George Lombard. I watched him in spring training, and there was a lot to be excited about. There was a lot to be desired with George Lombard, but again, that's just spring training. I've seen Greg Bird put up Hall of Fame numbers in spring training and then absolutely shit the bed in the regular season. So I try not to put too much weight on spring training. Rodriguez is interesting as well. I'm looking at his numbers right now: 10.9 strikeouts per 9 in Double A last season. Kept a 2.46 ERA and kept his WHIP around 1.04. So keeps the walks down, lots of strikeouts, and looks like he keeps the ball in the park. Yeah, two home runs in 61 innings. So there's a lot to like about Rodriguez. I think there's a lot to like about how the Yankees are developing their pitching. You see that in Schlittler and Will Warren as well. So the Yankees farm in terms of pitching has improved significantly. I think that's one of the biggest knocks that they've had in recent years. And you have a couple of guys maybe outside of the top 100 to be excited about as well in Cunningham and Ben Hess. So there's a lot to like about the Yankees pipeline in terms of pitching.
I will give you 2 other names for fun too, because Pipeline ranked them in the top 100 on the Yankees side. They actually have Carlos Lagrange, however you pronounce it,
Sure.
at 79, ahead of Elmer Rodriguez, who they had at 82, and Dax Kilby ended up as a top 100 guy, 94th for top 100 for the Yankees. That might have been the highest I've seen Dax Kilby ranked. So they got 4 over there. I think the Mets also had, at least, let me double check my notes here. The Mets still had 4 in the same McLean, Benj, Tong, and Ewing over on Pipeline. The Yankees had their 4 over there. And Baseball America, I don't have the data too, but I do think they're also a fan of Carlos Lagrange as well. So those are some interesting names. I don't think either on the guys on the Yankee side are going to come into play on the Rookie of the Year side. But Peter, I mean, we know on our side, Nolan McLean is going to be starting for the Mets rotation. This is a potential Rookie of the Year, and we got to have some hope and belief there, or are we scared?
No, listen. Well, on the Yankees, real quick, just because I only have 1 point. I I guess Spencer Jones retired from baseball. I find that interesting. He's not showing up anywhere. But on the Mets, listen.
Neither is the Martian Jason Dominguez, by the way, but I think that's because he's relieved of his prospect status.
Yeah, I think he's had enough plate appearances. Listen, I think the only thing not keeping Jonah Tong at the top of pipeline and all these things is the fact that we saw him last year and he didn't look great. There were definitely things to like, but overall, clearly he still has some things to work on in the minors, and I do expect him to start in the minors this year. I think as far as prospect pedigree, I mean, Jonah Tong probably had more than McLean, but McLean's just been able to put it together. Obviously, I love McLean. I've loved him since he was a relief pitcher that could hit the ball. Cowboy Ohtani, never forget. But that's just the farm system that David Stearns has built up. Like, they have those four guys. They traded away Jet Williams. It seems like they are more excited about Ewing internally than they let on. I forget the other guy. I forgot the other guy that they traded in the Luis Robert trade. But I was reading
Acuna?
No, the pitcher.
The Harvard guy?
Yeah.
Hang on, I'll bring him up for you because I had very little to say about him. But that was Truman Pauly, the 12th to 13th rounder from Harvard.
Yeah, the only notable thing on him is he has apparently a very good fastball shape. I'm not enough of a baseball nerd to know what that looks like, but there's that. But I was reading a Joel Sherman article the other day, and basically the Mets think that they can create a million Truman, whatever his name was. They'll trade away Jet Williams because they can create another Jet Williams. So it not that I see the Mets farm system necessarily turning into a revolving door, because you can't hit on everybody, but like if there's a player in the Mets system that like is getting some shine, then I'm gonna take notice of him, because David Stern, he's bringing that track record from Milwaukee. Like, that's how they built that team. Now, obviously, the Mets have a lot more payroll to mess with, and they have done that. But it's, and again, there's on the Mets, I know a lot about them more than other teams. Like, no one's even mentioned Jonathan Santucci. Like, people are super excited about him. Like, so there's a lot to be excited for in Mets prospect land.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see what happens. We're obviously going to be here talking about it a lot, because I do think that I try to consume as much prospect information as I can, but at the end of the day, it just comes down to strong organizational development, and these teams are both really good at doing that. Because as much as you can, you throw jokes at the Yankees, I mean, the fact that these guys are on the roster like Dominguez and they made it up to the majors is already an achievement in itself, and we'll see what we get out of them going forward. I mean, prospects are prospects. McLean's the closest on the Mets side, so we're excited, obviously, to see what happens. An extra pick would be awesome because it helps with exactly what they're trying to do. And if not, we'll live with it. But yeah, we've passed our hour. We've passed an hour 20, so I don't want to keep you guys hostage here. I think that's just a little bit unfair. So we can just wrap that up unless we have final takes for the night. So does anyone have any final thoughts they want to share before we get cut off for the night? God, Luke, you are so nice to raise your hand. I think that's kind of
thank
cute.
you.
So
I feel like I'm back in grade school. Just one thing too, Ram. You are not the one on the podcast that holds us hostage. Just so you know. I'm sure our viewers are aware. I'm sure our viewers are well aware of how of who holds us hostage. No, I wanted to say something. I read a report just before our show. I don't know how much truth is behind it. It is on ESPN, so I have to imagine that there's a lot of truth behind it. But it did come out today that Artemi Panarin has played his last game as a New York Ranger tonight. The team has decided for roster management, he will be held out of the lineup going through the freeze during the Olympic period. And it's disheartening as a Rangers fan. Artemi has been such a great player, universally recognized as one of, if not the greatest signings that the New York Rangers has had, especially for the value that they've gotten out of him. I think you're talking about a guy who's making about $9 to $9.5 million a year, where the pedigree of player that he's been, those guys are making north of 10 million, if not 12 million a year. So a very good contract by the New York Rangers, and a great signing. And again, just the playmaking and scoring ability that he brought for the New York Rangers. 600 total career points with the New York Rangers. I want to say it was about like a 200 goals, 400 assists, somewhere around there. And just a phenomenal human being as well. There was a lot of off the ice issues or posed as issues. He was very, spoken out against the Russian government and Vladimir Putin, which then he received backlash for that, where they created fake reports that he was committing misconduct when he was a junior hockey player, and took it on the chin. Was very respectful with the media, and just, I would say, just a very, very good human being. And it's difficult it's difficult because this is the piece of the Rangers that tells us that this is the end of the era, right? This is the end of those years of making the playoffs, building a Stanley Cup roster. This is the domino that's fallen now. You've traded away your captain. You've traded away a mainstay in the Rangers for over the last decade in Chris Kreider, and now it's time for Artemi Panarin to go. And I wish him all the best. I really do. I think he is deserving of going to a team that is successful. He has a full no trade clause, so he will get to choose where he goes, and I hope he lands in a really great place. So thank you, Breadman, for all of your years with the New York Rangers. You are a phenomenal player, and I wish you the best.
I always thought from afar that Panarin, because of the way he'd been received by Rangers fans and the way that I had at least paid attention to hockey from afar, was somebody who was drafted by the Rangers. And it was only a couple of years ago that I found out that actually, no, he wasn't drafted by the Rangers. Like, it was the whole stuff with Russia. He signed an entry-level contract, and then he signed his first big deal with the Rangers right before the pandemic. And he just kind of became like a Ranger. And it's one of those things where, like, we talk about players in sports where they don't necessarily, like, if I think of Artemi Panarin, I think of him as a Ranger. And even if he plays another 3 years somewhere else, I'm always going to think, okay, this guy's a Ranger. And so I can imagine it must be a tough one, but I think you hit on something very important there, as your thought is that it is kind of the end of the era. That is the signaling that, okay, this is it. Because if we're moving off Panarin, then it's time to just start it all over. And so I imagine this to be a tough one. I mean, Peter, I don't know if you have to say anything about that or if you have a different thought.
No, I mean,
if you want to speak on Panarin, you can.
Yeah, just going off that. Like, listen, over the years, I've been less and less invested in hockey just because you get busy with life. But there was a time and point where I was a huge Rangers fan. I watched almost every game. I did kind of catch the tail end of, my tail end of being super invested in hockey did overlap with Panarin. And it was just I remember, I'll never forget that feeling of bringing it in. Like, I was convinced that he was the missing piece for Stanley Cup. But the thing that I'll always remember him for, because last year was just an absolute shit show and train wreck. And Sam Rosen, legendary Rangers play-by-play announcer, retired last year. But the year before that, his last ever playoff game that he broadcasted, very legendary call on Panarin's game winner in overtime. So whenever I think of Panarin, I'll always think of that goal, and I'll think of Sam Rosen. It'll make me happy. So thanks for everything, Breadman. You were You were too good for this organization, unfortunately. And Chris Jury, you're a son of a bitch, and I can't wait to see you get fired.
You know what, Peter? I won't go as far to say that Panarin was not too good for this organization. I think he was. I think he was the right fit. I think he's just a casualty of poor management by Chris Jury.
Let me reword my statement then. You are too good for this organization now.
Yeah.
I think you're just saying he was too good for Chris Jury.
I think he is. I think he is way too good for Chris Jury, and Chris Jury does not get credit for Artemi Panarin. It was the previous regime that signed Chris Jury. So, hats off to Jeff Gordon for signing Panarin.
So if it makes you feel any better, I had to watch Mitch Marner return to Toronto last week in a Vegas Knights uniform. I'll say something about that quickly before we sign off. I think it's cute because it's an actual thought and not just a Marner to Toronto thing. They booed the hell out of him every time he touched the puck.
Yeah.
But when they played his tribute video, they all stood up and gave him a standing ovation.
Yeah.
And I really vibe with that. I legitimately, because it's one of those things where I'm like, listen, when I think about when guys like Pete Alonso come back, I'm probably going to love him to death, right? But there might be some other guys that swing back around. For the tribute video, if you've given almost 10 years to an organization, you should give them their little moment and clap and applause. And then when you realize they're the enemy, you should boo the hell out of them. I think that's a great cultural move. I think, so I got to give Canada their points for that. That's the right way to do it. Boo the hell out of them after you gave them a nice little standing ovation and throw up the Benedict Marnold signs. I like that. I do think Benedict Marnold crapped me the hell up. That was really good. So
I think
Canada,
Graham, if you have time tonight and you enjoyed that, go on YouTube and look up John Tavares.
John Tavares coming back to the Islanders. I know, yeah, because
that is one of the greatest. And we talk about Boston versus New York. Now, granted, I am under the full belief that John Tavares is the bad guy, 100% the bad guy in that transaction. But it is a video that just seeps what New York is, the amount of loyalty to a team and how much hatred one arena can have towards an individual for wronging them. It is as New York as you could get. So
I thought it was really funny because as somebody who was paying attention to the Leafs at that time, it really does make me laugh because John Tavares coming from the Islanders are in my backyard. So it was such a funny situation for me to watch, the local team to me, the trader signs, the snakes and everything. I thought it was hilarious. I was like, man, Islanders fans are I get why they're Mets fans. We're emotional people. I completely understand them as human beings. But they still boo him every time.
Oh yeah. No, and they have every right to. They have absolutely every right to. I mean, it was a bad guy move. But that's a story for a different day.
I think it's important. I liked it. I liked the trader jerseys too. I saw the trader jerseys when Tavares came back. So I guess the Canadians still did it nicer. But I understand the hate. We'll see what happens when Pete Alonso comes back into town, or Nimmo comes back into town, or McNeil comes back into town for the Mets. If they're as emotional as the Islanders fan base, and I think there's a lot of crossover there, we might see some fun things to speak of when that comes up. But yeah, I mean, until next week for now, when we'll hopefully have some organization again, and I have more than 45 seconds of prep for a podcast so I can figure things out that I can say on air. That would be great. I'll be more than happy to be back here with you guys next week on the regular at 10:30 as we discuss New York sports for a full hour for what feels like the first time in a bit. Speaking on behalf of myself and Luke and Peter and Ash, who's not here because he hates us, we are going to sign off and we will see you in a week. Thank you for listening. Take care. Be safe.